Political guy Scott Hughes is here. There have been things written in the last week or so, maybe a little longer, being discussed sort of by people who care about such things. And the point has been made that the possibility exists that the billion-dollar Cross Bayou project, if it's not going to be the deciding factor in the mayor's race, it's certainly going to be in the top 2 or 3. Thoughts there? And what are your thoughts on the project in general? Because I certainly have mine.
I'm not convinced that the Cross Bayou project is going to be a huge issue in the mayor's race. We'll have to wait and see. If I were, it will become an issue if the candidates running make it an issue. I think most candidates running will steer away from it.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
Well, it doesn't seem to be a very popular project. We talked earlier. Now, we get back to Hope. If you want to hang your hat on Hope is, the Cross Bayou renovations, then...
So that's how they have to sell it. They have to sell it as a new vision for a new, shiny, cool Shreveport.
Correct. But then the problem with the Cross Bayou project is it exposes about every other problem that we currently have in Shreveport. And I don't want to get down on the project. I don't know. It hasn't been disposed
Let's
publicly
speak
enough.
In generalities.
But in generalities, if you want to talk about the project, it now points out a lot of problems. Now, I've seen the data. I've talked to Liz Swain, DDA, about investing in downtown, the return you get, et cetera. But until we see a lot more information, it's hard to judge the project. You throw around $1 billion, billion-dollar number.
And they always say, well, but it's over 10 years. I'm going, okay, but here's my first question, is when it was a $300,000 or $100,000 project, whatever it happened to be, I forget.
$100 million.
Yeah, I'm sorry, duh. That's what they wanted from the city. They wanted, what was it, 10?
Before it was a $130 million project, and I think they were looking for $30 million-ish, $40 million-ish.
It was about a 10%. So if the bond issue, if the percentage remains the same, if they want the city to back up 10% of $1 billion, that's a lot of money to put Shreveport on the hook for.
Well, and I think when we look at the Cross Bayou project, it could be that hope thing. We'll see. The real thing I think we have to see before we can even really comment on the Cross Bayou project is, what is the Cross Bayou project? When you throw out $1 billion number, it's hard for the average citizen to understand that. But when you really start trying to break this down, they've said several things. Obviously, they're going to have to acquire the land. They're going to have to mitigate the land. The land is a known contamination site. It's been a junkyard. It's been different things over the years. So even getting clear title to the land, which most people believe will be the role of the city. The role of the city will be to acquire the land, to create clear title, to mitigate it through brownfields, and then to turn it over to the developer.
Is it at least interesting to you, as has been pointed out over the last couple of weeks, that Theron Jackson is one of the guys running interference for this project, is the head of the MPC, and they'd have a lot of decision. They would be very integral in the decision-making process about moving the project forward?
Well, you actually have two. You have Theron Jackson, who's on the project team, who's a former city council person, very well known in Shreveport, and you have Curtis Joseph, who's a local attorney, who's also on the MPC and listed on the project team. So two of the project team's principals of what we've seen so far
are in the decision
sit
process.
on the MPC. Yeah. And that becomes troublesome politically in many ways. I mean, beyond just the Cross Bayou development part of this, the MPC is approving applications and zoning all over the city. And so there are people who will ask, is it right for people to sit and vote on applications for other developments that now might actually be in competition with a development that these people are fronting?
That was an awesome soundbite, by the way. In wrapping up about Cross Bayou, in my mind, and a local business leader, a very dynamic young man, said this to me a couple of weeks ago in reference to Cross Bayou. He said, if your major tenant is going to be the state of Louisiana, you're just, and he said, Shreveport traditionally does this. He said, it's nothing new. We're shifting things, i.e., you can move all those state workers, and I had said this too, you can move all those state workers from the corner of Jordan and Fairfield down to Cross Bayou, and then you've got a great big empty building at the corner of Jordan and Fairfield. We're just moving stuff. We're not bringing in anything new. Is that fair?
No, I think it's completely fair. You actually have a great big empty building across the street from a great big empty building at this point, because the current state office building sits within a good 9-iron shot of Shreveport Hospital, which is largely empty at this point. And so, but I think that's interesting when you look at this $1 billion. they've given us several parts. They've said we want to relocate the state office building. Well, to my knowledge, there's nothing in capital outlay today. That's set. That's a multi-year process to get through capital outlay. In the state, the last we've heard seems to be broke. There is a talk of a charter school going in this project. There is talk of office and retail, and they've talked about building up to 5,000 houses, a village, a neighborhood downtown. And so when you start trying to put pen to pencil to this, and we haven't seen real numbers, you know, one of my the people I work with day in day out said, well, if they were going to do 5,000 houses at $150,000 a home, that's $750 million. And so when we hear this $1 billion number, we've seen nothing to tell us what it is.
Basically, they want to build Benton or Plain Dealing downtown. It's a pretty big project.
And so before this project can become anything to do with the mayor's race, before anyone can legitimately, I think, really get into it beyond the politics of it, they got to put something on the table. They got to show us what the billion is. They got to show us what they're talking about and what the public investment would be. That's where I think it comes into the mayor's race. The citizens, if this is the hope, if a mayor wants to hang their hat on this as the hope of the future of Shreveport, now you're pitting downtown against the rest of the city. And when you're running for political office, that becomes dangerous because there are not many votes downtown.